This week's Parshat Emor is one of the most enigmatic stories, I think, in the whole Bible, and that is the story of the blasphemer. And the story goes like this. I'll read it to you in English, and then we'll discuss it. Um, I'll summarize it. There was a son of an Israelite woman, and his father was an Egyptian man. And he goes out into the camp, and he has a fight with another Israelite man, who's the son of Israelite man and Israelite woman. And he gets so angry, he ends up blaspheming the name of God. He pronounces God's name and he blasphemes. And the nation brings this matter to God because they don't know what to do. And in the end of the day, they have to, the people who heard him blaspheme have to lay their hands on his head and they have to stone him to death, the nation. And I think the one of the most telling words in the story is the first one, and it's Vayetze, that he went out. And the first place that came to mind is in Parsha Vayetze, when Jacob has to go out. He has to leave. Why? Where's he going? He had just tricked his father into giving him a blessing that was meant for his brother Esav. And when Esav found out, he was livid and wanted to murder Yaakov. Now Yaakov had to leave. He had to flee from his home, and he ended up fleeing to the house of Lavan. Now, when he had to do this, it was a transformative moment in his life. This leaving, this Vayetze, was we had to go out from his identity. All his life, we were told he was known as Ish Tam Yoshev Ba'olim, as this simple man residing in tents. Esav was the one to always go out. But now that he took Esav's blessing, he was forced to go out and to have to embody some of that nature of someone who was more outgoing, and he had to flee and live outside his home for many years. And so this is a moment where he's changing identity. He has to leave a part of his old identity behind to become a new identity. And the same thing in the next story that I thought of, that the commentaries bring up as well for different reasons, is the story of when Moshe grew up in the house of the Pharaoh, the Egyptian king. And so his whole life he was around the Egyptian people, but he was going out. It says Vayetze, he went to go see the plight of his brothers. So he's going out, he's about to leave this Egyptian identity behind. It says it twice in that story. Once that he went out to look at the plight of his brothers, and he sees an Egyptian man abusing an Israelite man, and he ends up killing him and burying him in the sand. And the next day he goes out again and he sees two Israelite men fighting, and he intervenes, and one of them says, "Are you going to kill me like you killed the mystery the other day?" He knew the matter was known. He was forced to flee from Egypt lest Paro kill him. And this, he goes on his way to becoming the person who ends up being the leader of the Jewish people. So I'd say Israelite par excellence, okay, the leader. So he was leaving that identity behind. So it's a transformative part of a person when when they're about to move on in life. And I think that this man, who was part Egyptian and part Israelite, and who was now going out in the camp, in the Israelite camp, and he wants to be a part of the people. And he has a fight with someone who is whole Israelite, because his mother and his father are both Israelite people. And we're told his mother's name. We're not told his name. We're not told his father's name. We're not told the other guy's name. We're only given one name. And the only one name we're given in the story is the name of this man's mother. And I think, I mean, there are reasons given that didn't really speak to me, but I think what makes sense to me, so you can take this or leave this, because it's my interpretation, is that his mother's name is Shlomit Bat Divri. It's peace born of words, and she is from the tribe of Dan. So I think that he had taken on this quality of his mother to try and make peace amongst people with words, try to be a part, a whole. Peace, shalem means shalem. It's not just peace, it's shalem with being whole. And he wanted to be whole based on his words. He goes out in the camp and he thinks he's going to be able to be a part with, conversing with the people and being one of them. And I mean, we're told that the fight between him and the Israelite man is that we're also told that this woman is from the tribe of Dan and he wanted to inherit in the tribe of Dan. And when the other man said, no, you can't inherit because inheritance goes according to the father. Your father's Egyptian. He doesn't even get an inheritance. And they brought it to Moshe and Moshe said, that's law, yes. And he was livid. And he was so angry that he ended up uttering the name of God and blaspheming and having to be put to death because of this. Now, in this story, I think another crucial factor when we look at the words is we see the word ish appear so much. This is an ish mitzri from an ish this and an ish that, and ish a man, ish a man. It keeps using the word ish. And I think that ish, we're told, it indicates importance. When you want to say a person and you say ish, you're showing how their importance. And I think we're talking a lot in this story also. There's a lot of ego involved. That both of them felt that what they were arguing about, they felt indignant. They felt, especially you can understand this today when people argue, their whole being, their whole ego gets involved, and it became beyond what the matter was. It was ego against ego, and that is what caused the man at the end. Despite, I mean, you have to think he went out, he was trying to be a member of the tribe of Israel. And what does he end up doing? Blaspheming God. God is what makes somebody, the belief in the one true God and not blaspheming, doing the opposite of that, is what the whole Jewish people are about, right? Making God's name great, not blaspheming it. And if he wanted to be a member, the last thing he really would do would blaspheme God. But when the ego gets involved, when the ego gets tied up, people are capable of doing the worst things. And that's what he did. And I'm not saying he's wholly at fault for this. I'm saying is that the ego of the other man who felt, indignant and self-righteous, and I'm fully, my mother's Israelite, my father's Israelite, and I know the law, and who does he think he is coming in and just going to try to smooth talk us through this? They both had a compelling argument. But the point is that the Israeli man should have been way more sensitive. He should have gone above and beyond, because also what makes somebody an Israelite, someone who would stand for what the Israeli nation is supposed to stand for, is somebody who's like God. The 13 midot, the 13 attributes of mercy, he should be merciful, should be kind, he should go over and above. Despite what the law is, he should make this man feel very accepted, very apart. And maybe the law was couldn't get land, but he could have done some sort of other way of maybe finding him some, portion and ability to maintain his dignity and his self-respect and to feel apart and not to feel like he's different just because, he was born of a father that he had no choice in the matter. And to take away somebody's dignity and not to go out of your way because your ego is getting involved, it makes them culpable. And that's why I think when they asked God what to do with this man, so everybody who heard him blaspheme had to take part and by laying their hands on him, by saying, they have to get rid of the guilt because they're culpable in the way that it got to this way. They heard it because they were there and they didn't do something to stop it. They didn't help the conversation. They didn't intervene. And then the whole nation is responsible having to stone him because if they were different, this was unacceptable. You don't speak to somebody, you accept them, and they went out of the way to make him feel loved, and it was just, this wouldn't have maybe gotten this far. And I think the important thing is to understand that especially even when we get into arguments, is that even if we're right about something technically, in the spirit of the law is to always keep in mind the other person's self-respect, their dignity. And once you take that away from them, it doesn't matter if you're right about this matter or that matter. What you did is egregious sin. You have taken a huge part in the demise of this person. You have ineffectively helped kill this person. And that blaspheming is partly your fault because you could have done something to stop it. So I think the important thing is to always try and to devoid the ego and to take into consideration, no matter what, um, the other person through love and kindness. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Let me know what you think in the comments.